Hello everyone, myself Priscilla. This is a new initiative brought to you by Transformers Academy. In this we will be detailing the current affairs on a daily basis related to UPSC and KPSC exam. So let's get started for 7/7/2018, the Hindu analysis. So the first news item, the judge defends the verdict on the SC/ST Act. So basically it's about the SC/STs. The Prevention of the Atrocities Amendment Act 1989 was introduced to protect the vulnerable sections of the society. So in the year 1989 we had the act which was being introduced to basically to protect the vulnerable sections of the society, but the act has been amended in the year 2015 to cover the newer forms of discrimination against the Dalits and also with respect to the tribals. So since it was an old one, we have to understand what are the new forms of discrimination as come into the evolving society. Based on that, the amendment is being taken up. So here the act is providing certain provisions, and the first provision is that the establishment of exclusive special courts and the specification of the exclusive special public prosecutors to enable the speedy and the expeditious disposal of the cases. So basically it's an establishment of the new courts and also the new public prosecutors, in sense the specialized public prosecutors who can help in having a speedy and also the expeditious disposal of the cases. Secondly, if at all there has been a sort of a trial which has been fixed up, once a case is being filed, they have to just ensure that within 2 months from the date of filing of the charge sheet, the completion of the trial has to happen. So that's about here, the completion of the trial of the case filed under the POE within 2 months from the date of the filing of the charge sheet. And the third is defining clearly the term willful negligence of the public servants at all levels, starting from the registration of the complaint and covering the aspects of the duty under its particular act. So now, as a common layman, if you move on for any kind of an registration of the complaint, if at all a public servant denies or is showing a willfulness towards taking up with a sort of a complaint to what is being done or is not happy in discharging the function, they have to be clearly defined. So that's what they're trying to do here, define clearly the term with the willful negligence. So what would be the reasons at all levels? And then comes with the addition of the presumption to the officers if the accused was acquainted with the victim. The court will presume that the accused was aware of the caste or the tribal identity of the victims unless proved otherwise. So this is another ground what very importantly the particular provision has been speaking about. The next one we have is the Supreme Court's verdict. So connected to it, the Supreme Court had given a verdict. The Supreme Court has ruled that the section 18, which bars the grant for anticipatory bail to anyone accused of the violating its provisions, and it is not an absolute bar to whatever the bar is being spoken about here. It's not an absolute bar on giving the advance bail to those against the who is been a prima facie or there is no case about it. Secondly, in addition, the bench has prohibited the arrest of anyone merely because of the complaint that had committed an atrocity against a Dalit or a tribal person. So this is basically giving a protection to the common layman who's been under the societal pressures where just because someone been complained against him as an atrocities for a Dalit or a tribal people, they will be arrested immediately. But right now this particular verdict has been given a prohibition for any kind of an arrest on any mere cases. That has to be proper grounds. So based on that they have to arrest a person for the same. And in respect of the public servant, and if a person, let's say he's been given a kind of a complaint against a public servant, there should not be any arrest without a written permission from the officials appointing the authority. So unless and until they get a written permission telling that this person can be arrested, till then a public servant cannot be arrested on these particular grounds. And next is, and for private citizens, the senior superintendent of the police of the district should approve the arrest. For any private persons, citizens, if they want to arrest him, the senior superintendent of police in the district is the one who has to approve his particular arrest for this particular areas where there is an atrocities of the particular crimes. Then we have, the court said there would be like 15 to 16% of the total number of complaints which has been filed in the year 2015 under the act where there are false, and many cases were filed to settle the personal scores and also with the harass adversaries. So why if this particular verdict has been come on to light is just because like 15 to 16% to whatever the case has been registered in the year 2015 as per the particular act is a false kind of cases. They don't have a proper reasons to file it just because they had their personal scores, and also they want to harass a person with respect to taking the ambit of this particular amendment or act which has been come up. The false case has been registered. So that's the reason the Supreme Court had to give the verdict on it. The next one, the government deploys 800 IS officers for village outreach. So basically we are talking about the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, and later we would call it as EGSA. We'll see what it is. First and foremost, the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan was launched in April 2014, and the main aim is to improve the socio-economic conditions of the village. So the main particular ideology is about the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan. So basically we are talking about the socio-economic conditions of the village to improve them, and the main aim is to provide the households with the electricity, insurance, LPG connections, and also the other such facilities. These are basic things what the people have in the villages they required. So that is what the particular scheme is looking at, to give them the benefit about it. And the center's model village scheme will now include 12 welfare flagship programs and has been extended to more villages. Therefore, they have been named as Extended Gram Swaraj Abhiyan. Basically, it's a Gram Swaraj Abhiyan which was started in the year 2014, but now it has got converted into EGSA just because there are 2 welfare flagship programs which has been extended to the villages, and that's why it's got the name as Extended Gram Swaraj Abhiyan. So there are 2 important phases. Number 1, phase 1. The first phase is between April and May, and it comprised 7 schemes, and the main 7 schemes are Pradhan Mantri Ujjwal Yojana, then we have the Saubhagya Ujjwala scheme, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, then we have the Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, Suraksha Bima Yojana, and the Mission Indra Dhanush. So all these schemes which comes under phase 1. Under phase 2 we have the Extended Gram Abhiyan. So this is with respect to added another 5 new initiatives, because we saw here it's altogether 12 welfare flagship programs. So we have 7 here and 5 has been added, which will concentrate on improving the schools, the health services, and the nutrition, and launching the agriculture projects and the skill development programs. The second phase, which is having a 5 new initiatives, will concentrate on the schools, health conditions, and also the nutrition, agriculture products, and also with the skill development programs. And by the second phase it will cover almost like 49,175 villages, and up from 16,850 in the first phase. So the first phase this was a coverage, wherein now under the second phase it's going to be 49,175 villages. But recently the government had deployed 800 IS officers for village outreach. Basically this to ensure the delivery of the central welfare schemes via the extended, that's a Gram Abhiyan. So here we have each IS officer, we'll see the bifurcations. Each IS officer has been assigned 75 villages, and a total of 49,178 villages will be covered, because that's what we saw under phase 2. Most of these villages have the majority of the SC/ST population. The domination caste would be the SC/STs out there, and the team monitors the functioning of the schemes and also gets the feedback. In case of any loophole, it tries to sort it on the spot. So there should not be any dragging of an issue. If there's any loopholes which has to be fixed up, they try to sort it out at the spot. And the team also upholds the day's progress into a data system, and since they upload it on a daily basis and tracked live on the EGSA dashboard. So whatever the team has been done, they have to upload it, the progress on a daily basis, so that the data would be filled up with the basic information, so that the tracking happens on a well base. So the concerns is, there have been the concerns raised over a widespread involvement of central officers in the implementing government welfare schemes. This might have an impact on the center-state relations and also undermine the principle of the cooperative federalism. Because since here most of the people would be deployed from the central office, that's the central government, so there might be a problem which might arise from the center and state. So their relations might be having an hampering. On top of it, it is having and undermining the principles of the cooperative federalism. So this is the only major concern with an implementation of this particular scheme. So you have the basic informations out here to the same 800 IS officers being deployed. So this is about it. The next news item, alternative cereals can save water. This basically we are talking about the crop water requirement. The study was being conducted by the researchers of the US based Earth Institute, Columbia University, and the Indian School of Business, which has been set up at Hyderabad, stated that a shift from the rice and the wheat cultivation to cultivation, basically we call it as an alternative cereals such as the maize, sorghum, millet, could reduce the demand for irrigation water in India by 33%. by just having an involvement of these particular millets or the cereals would be able to have a reduction of the irrigation to almost like 33%, in sense the demand which can be reduced. So the major highlights of the study is that the combined production of the alternative cereals has larger than that of the wheat in the year 1916, but their relative contribution to the cereal supply declined steadily during this particular period. So telling that the combined production, when we have an alternative cereals, it's coming out well, but we move on for a single part which were had it in 1960, we didn't have a proper production output. And secondly, we have is that these alternative cereals also disproportionately account for a supply of protein, iron, zinc among the kharif crops, and the total CWR demand for Indian cereal production increased from 482 to 632 during this particular periods. So which means that the crop, this is about it, it's a crop water requirement. Over the time it's getting increased for the particular demand for Indian cereal production from 482 to 632. And the rice is a least water efficient cereal when it came to producing nutrients and was a main driver in increasing the irrigation stresses. So here the irrigation stress is more when we had to compare it with the rice. And the report suggests that replacing the rice cultivation by maize, finger millet, pearl millet, sorghum could save the irrigation and improving the production of the nutrients such as iron by 27% and zinc by 13%. Basically here the move is that cultivation to cultivation with the alternative cereals. So we have to have a proper alternative. So one particular irrigation to what a particular crop is taking, that can be reduced to a larger extent so that you have a good production accompanied with the alternative cereals. That's about it. The next one, the plan for central pool for documentary proof. So this is basically a proposal for creating a centralized pool of documentary evidence has been pending consideration with the government. So this particular documentary proof gathered by the respective agencies would be stored at a single place. So whatever the informations or a data what we have, documentary evidences, we need to have at one particular single place, and that is this plan is all about. And its certified copies would be made available for the purposes of investigation and use as evidence in the court of law. In the near future, this can be used for the investigation and also for the evidences in the court of law. The benefits is that it would help in fast sharing of actionable information on economic offences between various central investigation agencies, just that making the things to fall in place so that fast sharing can happen. Secondly, time effective and would address the issue of delays in investigation due to large time taken in information sharing. So information sharing is the biggest burden onto a country like a developing countries. So this would definitely have a time effective, and also it might address the issues without any delays. That's a basic ideology. And thirdly, it might ensure a transparency in the system. So these are the basic benefits, and that's the reason there is a plan for central pool of documentary proof. The next news item, the new trade order. So basically we are talking about the trade war. There are three possible explanations for the trade wars launched by Trump administration. Number one, complaints about the Chinese practices. Number two, preoccupation with meaningless bilateral trade deficits. Number three, a straightforward desire to block trade. So since the start of the year, we have Mr. President Donald Trump has slashed out at allies and adversaries alike on trade. So US has increased 25% duties on the Chinese machinery, electronics and high-tech equipment, including the autos, computer, hard drives and also the LEDs. And the China has retaliated by imposing the tariff on the US import. So here US did it and China is also trying to give it back. So now the problem is about the protectionism. So even though the US has a significant reservation about the Chinese economic practices, such as China's aggressive approach to acquiring intellectual property from American businesses, devaluation of the currency, it has not imposed tariffs on China alone. So EU and Canada has also been attracted with the high tariffs. So it's not just the China which has been having a problem out here, even the EU and also Canada also been attracted with the high tariffs, and the Trump places a high priority on bilateral trade deficits. For instance, we have the Chinese products attracted higher tariffs. However, the countries with which the US runs a trade surplus have also not been immune from the trade attacks. For example, it's the Canada. So US is having a good trade surplus with Canada, but still even they have the same problem. And we have China, which has contrary to it, they had a trade deficit, but still China also is facing the same problem. So this is the problem with respect to the countries which is having a connection with US with respect to the trade. And the problem with WTO is that the global trading system such as the WTO rely on the principal players respecting the system. So here the WTO is relying on the principal players, and the dispute mechanism has failed to act quickly to address the mounting spats about the trade protectionism emanating from the US. So just that the dispute settlement mechanism what is being there a part of WTO, they're telling that it's not been act quickly so that whatever the trade protectionism is happening from the US can be sorted out at the earliest part, so that the other nations or a kind of a tit for tat from between the nations would not happen, so that avoiding these kind of an issue becomes a major importance. So here you have the Trump's $1 trillion trade war. So you have US with connection with other countries. So US President Donald Trump trade wars with allies and the partners could easily surge through the $1 trillion mark and affect almost a third of the America's total trade with the world. So here the global merchandise trade in the year 2017 was almost like 17.5 trillion, and we have the US trade with the world in 2015 was almost like $3.9 trillion, and the 1.25 trillion trade is at the risk right now. So this is with respect to China, US and China. You can just have a look onto it. Then you have the European Union, that's EU, and we have Canada out here, which is having a very good trade surplus but still having the same problem. Then we have the Mexico, then we have the Malaysia, South Korea, and this is about the Indian part. So we recently also we saw in the news that tariffs been hiked by India by 50% on 30 imported US goods, and this is with respect to steel and the aluminum levies what the US has done back in their country. So these are the part for the trade wars which is happening presently. So these are the important news items for 7/7/2018. Thank you.